Hi, everyone. This is Alan Lepofsky from Constellation Research. I'm lucky to be joined today by Scott Wharton, the Vice President and General Manager of the Video Collaboration Unit at Logitech. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk to you about the changes that we're seeing take place in the collaboration market. You know, as an analyst, I sort of look at the trends that are happening, and I think over the last few years, how team collaboration is becoming more acceptable. And, you know, both on the technology side and the culture side, we're becoming more comfortable with it. People are working from remote locations, from home, from different offices. You know, what do you see as one of the major changes that's taking place in collaboration?
Well, I think there's a variety of trends that are happening all at the same time. So one of them is that we see companies all around the world moving from the old classic ring of closed offices around the world, moving to more of these open spaces. And it's not just a Silicon Valley thing. We see it at big companies, small companies, in Asia and Europe, everywhere. And I think that's driving the need to have more of these dedicated collaboration rooms that people are calling huddle rooms today. So that's a big change in the way people are operating and organizing. I think the second thing is kind of like what we're doing today. More work is done remote. Not everybody is in all the same location. And as things become more specialized, even in the world that we're in, people are spread all around the world, and it's really important to be able to bring us together. And audio just doesn't cut it anymore. I think as people use video anymore, they realize that it kind of sucks. And
so we start to become a little more connected when we can see video, right? It's in our home lives and with our families and our friends. We've got cameras in our pockets. We're all, video conferencing with each other. You're starting to see that become more prevalent at work, right?
Well, absolutely, and I think there's a couple things. One is kind of a part of it's the TiVo effect. So for people who hadn't used TiVo before, and you said, "Oh, you need this TiVo, it's so great," and all the people go, "What do I need it for?" And then you use it, you go, "Oh my God, how did I operate without being able to pause and record?" And I don't want to watch Saturday Night Live until 1 a.m. Or at least for me, I don't stay up that late anymore. But for other people to be able to shift their work style. I think we're seeing some of the same things. And then, of course, there are millennials now, which are reportedly about half of the workforce. For them to spend all of their lives natively in video and then to come into an audio world that's like nails on a chalkboard. So
yeah,
I think
even worse than audio is just text-based. So, we have text, we have audio, we have video. So video is becoming an extremely important part of team collaboration. Like you said, whether they're remote, whether they're at home, they're in different offices. You're in charge of the video collaboration group at Logitech. It's an amazing sounding division. Tell me a little bit about specifically what you guys are working on. What's the mandate of your group?
Well, I think if you look at Logitech's history, we're great at doing consumer products, especially peripherals for computers. One of the things that we were known for were webcams. And one of the things that we realized is that our customers were saying, hey, I'd love to take these webcams and take them out of the domain of a desktop and put them into rooms. In fact, we were watching many of our customers actually put them in rooms. So we thought, well, that's interesting because they weren't really designed for that. So we started developing this new category called conference cams, where people would take webcams essentially as bigger things that were more designed for groups as opposed to individuals and put them in the rooms. And within a very short period, we've actually become the biggest player in the world for conferencing room units. And part of why we've done that, I think, is that we've changed the dynamics from very expensive systems that only went into certain boardrooms to being something that could go anywhere. Let's say an average of $1,000 per conference room. And then I think we've taken the Logitech heritage of making video easy to use, because in the past it was you had this 35 button that the vendors would tell you how intuitive it was, but never intuitive. Moving to more user interfaces that people know, like Zoom or Skype or Google Hangouts, et cetera. And then I think the last thing, non-trivial, is it needs to be easier to set up, because a lot of these systems, even though they work great, they just were not that easy to run. So if you had to put them everywhere, it would require an incredible amount of IT resource. So we've taken the Logitech heritage of not only being easy to use, but kind of easy to manage. And if you think about our devices are really USB, so they're mostly plug and play. You plug them in and they're just designed to work. So I think the combination of all of those things and the changes that we talked about in society have kind of got us in the place now where video is cost effective, easy enough to use, and it's at a point now where it's ready to jump into the mainstream, and in fact is.
So it's interesting, cost effective, easy to use. As you mentioned, you're kind of on the cam side of things. You mentioned a few of the software products that people use for video and web conferencing, and you seem to be very agnostic about, enabling companies of all sizes, of all vendors and things to be able to use these. So really sort of, I guess, helping with that price point. Makes it easy for anyone to use and anyone to get into. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that's right. And it's interesting in that I would say the world has really moved to Logitech strengths, and that I think what's really required in the video space is ease of use, low cost economics, have things work with everybody. Logitech is traditionally literally a Swiss company. So part of our heritage is really to work with all the platform providers, which is very different from where video was, where there was some notion of interoperability, but largely the vendors wanted to keep you into their walled garden and their experience. And a lot of the IT companies don't want that. I think the other thing that we've all experienced now is there's, just like in IM, there's no interop with messaging. You just download a new client and then you work with it. Video is the same way. If you want to have a call with someone, you don't need some complex interop scheme in the network. You just download another client to an open platform and voila, you're on a call. Logitech's good at that because we really work with everybody. So if you're thinking about using the hardware, you want it to work with everything. You don't want it to be locked in, and that's part of our strength.
Okay. Well, so, we've reached the stage where video collaboration is becoming one of the more important and more team-centric ways of people working. Let's now think out the next 1, 3, 5 sort of years. It's hard to go past that, but what are some of the trends that you're seeing and some of the directions that Logitech is thinking and technologies that you're looking at to help us go to the next level for collaboration?
So it's a bunch of things. I would say in the near term, because we've gotten to this point now where the technology has hit the mainstream, I think there's just a lot of room to be able to change the culture and get video in every room. So today, in fact, the usage is relatively low around the world. Even though we've made a lot of success, it's still only about 2.5% of all rooms around the world have video. So a lot of rooms will have a screen, they'll have a speakerphone, but they don't have video yet. So part of our ambition and part of what we see is companies are moving from putting video in a select number of boardrooms to just putting it in every room. Think about the idea that if you walked into a conference room, you would never ever hear someone say, well, there's room for 8, but we only bought 6 chairs because the ROI just didn't cut it. You'll see the same thing with video, where people are just going to put video in every room because it's just the way people work. So I would say that's one thing. I would say the second thing is we're going to be moving from the resolution wars, where people go from 720 to 1080 to 4K. I'd say we're almost kind of done there. You really don't need a lot better than 1080p or 4K systems. And then we'll see more around ease of use and making systems smarter. So part of how you'll do that is add things like computer vision and AI so that you can basically address some of the things that are hard today. Like, for example, I've got a remote control in front of me, but I bet our listeners don't really aspire to use a remote control. So you'll have cameras get smarter, so they'll be able to do things like auto crop. So you walk into a meeting and it'll automatically see how many humans in the room and just automatically change that. And then once you can see, there are a bunch of other things that you'll be able to do, from counting people into a room to looking around the room, and a bunch of other exciting things that I think will make it easier to use. So it's not just about adding features, it's about making them smarter so the end user has to do less.
Well, I think that last topic where you're discussing sort of bringing intelligence to the cameras, it's very hard to go anywhere in the tech world these days without discussing artificial intelligence and machine learning. For end users, they don't have to know those terminologies. They don't have to understand the technology that's behind it. They're just getting better experiences out of this. And it's interesting as we evolve what the meeting experiences like. You and I were having a great conversation the other day around how, if we can make meetings even better in these online and virtual environments than they are face-to-face. It's not just about catching up. It's about using this intelligence to do things that you may not even be able to do if you are physically present in a meeting. Is that correct?
No, you're absolutely right. So I think we have 2 models that we're aspiring to. So one is when we think about what we want to do in video, we actually think less about the model of Silicon Valley and more about Hollywood. Because if you think about Hollywood, they've spent 100 years perfecting the art of knowing how to move a camera around that pleases human beings. And we just want to apply that to meetings. So if you think about it, if you're in a meeting, most of us are smart enough to look around and know where the action is. Sometimes you look at the active speaker. Sometimes you look at 2 people who are talking. And then in some cases, you're looking at someone who's just listening because you want to know maybe the decision maker is kind of taking it all in. And human beings are good at that. Cameras right now are relatively dumb. So our vision is we want to make the effective Steven Spielberg in every meeting room. If Steven Spielberg was in here, he'd know exactly where to put the camera where the action's at. We just want to do that in AI and software. So that's part of our vision.
Uh, I can't tell you how much I love that phrase and that concept about making work more like Hollywood and less like Silicon Valley. I wish I had coined that phrase. I'm going to have to steal it from you. But anyone that follows a lot of my work, I'm extremely excited about the future of creativity at work, and that Hollywood story just strikes with me perfectly. All of these technologies are changing to enable people to tell stories better, to become more creative, where, there's 360-degree cameras now, and, effects that you can add to your cameras, all of these things.
Yeah.
How do we bring some of that creativity to work? What are some of the use cases I think we can hope for in the workplace, where what would Steven Spielberg do if he was running a company type of thing? Where are you seeing that take place?
Well, I think part of it is we want to take the technology and not just throw it into the user's face, but have it kind of disappear. Like, as you said, the end user doesn't need to know how the intelligence is happening in the background. Just like when I'm doing a Google search, I don't really understand or even care to understand how Google's anticipating what my search is. We want to be able to do some of those things for meetings. And one of our aspirations on the video world is we actually want to go beyond being almost as good as being there. So a lot of times, from our experience, people will say, video conferencing, it's almost as good as being there, but if I really want to have the great experience, I'm going to fly out to you. We started looking at that and saying, maybe our ambition should be better than being there. So I have this story with my son from a couple of years ago, and he was 12 at the time, and we were talking about going to the Golden State Warriors game, which is topical now during the playoffs. And we were watching a lot of the games together, and I asked him if he wanted to go. And he looked at me, kind of took a long pause, and said, "No, I don't want to go." He said, "What? What do you mean you don't want to go? We love the game, so much fun. Tell me why." And he said, "Well, Dad, I know the games are really expensive, and you're kind of a cheapskate, so we'll be sitting up in the bleachers, and then we got to drive there and sit in traffic, and then I can't pause the game like I have it on TV. And I love the announcers, and I love the play-by-play and the 360 reviews." And basically what he was describing is it's
interesting.
Better to be remote already. So we started thinking about that here at Logitech, said, all right, how do we take that idea of a sporting event where in a lot of cases, yes, it's fun to go there, but in some cases it's almost better. How do you apply that to a meeting context? And if you think about it, when you meet face-to-face with someone, let's say at a coffee shop, it's pretty good. We have good intuition of how the meeting went, but a lot of times you may ask someone, well, how did it go? You're trying to read into someone. Well, what if you had superhuman capabilities through technology where you could see how people were reacting to things or not? And you could see if they liked it. You could, instead of forgetting someone's wife's name, something would pop up in AR and you'd say, "Oh yeah, and I see you went on vacation," and giving you all these superhuman capabilities. And you can think about it in terms of meetings, personal interviews, where it's really important to get it right. And then you may say, "You know what, I could meet you in person, but I'd rather do it over video because it's better. It's better than being there." Now we have a long way to go to achieve that, but I think it's good to have a vision that we can all aspire to.
Well, it sounds extremely exciting. You're in charge of a group at, a massive organization that's going to, work on making this happen. As someone who spends a lot of time in meetings, both remote and face-to-face, I look forward to seeing some of these changes. I love the analogies of the things you can get by watching, sports broadcast on TV versus live, the different views. Imagine business meetings where everybody has the same sort of ringside seat and can listen to the decision maker and have equal sort of footing in those meetings, as opposed to who gets the chairs in the front, who gets the chairs in the back. It's really exciting to see where we're going with artificial intelligence, with, we barely touched on things like augmented reality and some of the extra information you're going to have displayed. I think it's going to be a great next, 1, 3, 5 years for the video space.
No, I think we totally agree. And I think part of what's exciting is that I don't think this is a 10, 20, or 30-year vision out. I mean, this is going to happen in the next 5 years or so as augmented reality, VR, 3D, more bandwidth, all these things come into play, more better processing, better software. And if you think about cameras getting less and less expensive, you won't just have that one camera, you'll have lots of them all around. Then the challenge would be, all right, how do you have that great software, that Steven Spielberg-like effect to implement it? And I think part of what I love being here at Logitech, I've spent the majority of my career in startups. and that the way we're organized with business groups, and that we have a relatively small group. So we can be innovative like a startup, but still leverage the global distribution, brand name, and support of being in 100 countries like Logitech. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, and it's really fun.
All right. Well, as an industry analyst who's covering the way employees work together, both with their colleagues and their customers, that whole employee experience, I look forward to seeing how Logitech can help sort of bring more Hollywood and less Silicon Valley to the way we get our jobs done. Scott, it's been a pleasure. We're on separate coasts. We're here on video talking to each other, and I think we're living exactly what we're talking about.
I totally agree, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks a lot, Alan.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Bye, everybody.